So the Bible, it's a big book, right? You agree? It's actually a big library. It's 66 individual books held together in one library. And we can't possibly cover the whole story in one day at one worship service. It is just way too much. So back in 1983, the powers that be, I don't know who makes these decisions, but they got together and they formed what is called the Revised Common Lectionary. All it is a way of organizing the Bible verses into bite-sized pieces that we can digest on any given weekend. And each week there are assigned readings, like we just heard Jordan do up here. There's one from the Old Testament, one from the Psalm, one from the epistles, which are the letters written to the churches, right? The epistles. It's a fun word. You should go say it at home a lot. Epistles. And then one from the gospel. It's the common lectionary because we all get the same Bible verses as most Lutheran, Catholic, Episcopal, Methodist, Moravian, Presbyterians, Reformed, UCC, and even those American Baptists. We all have the same lessons every weekend. And it's a 3-year cycle for the church year. There's a whole complicated calendar that tells us which lessons to read, which year. And you may have noticed that we are in the second year, the year of Mark. This is called year B of the lectionary. Matthew is A, Mark is B, Luke is C, and John is a weirdo, right? Oh, not you, John Rasmussen. I meant John the Bible writer. The other three pretty much agree in content, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. They're called the synoptic gospels, which means synoptic. They see things together the same way. But not John. He's special. John gets sprinkled in throughout all 3 years, especially during Lent and Holy Week. Anyway, all that to say, someone or some group of people made a decision for this week's gospel lesson that we didn't need to hear the whole story today. So I don't know if you noticed this, but we skipped a big chunk of story right in the middle about Jesus' work. The lessons go from Mark chapter 6, verse 34, and then they skip ahead to Mark chapter 6, verse 53. That is a significant chunk. In between are some really important stories about Jesus. The feeding of the 5,000. Jesus walking on water. Don't worry. We get that story next week. The feeding of the 5,000, And it's from the Gospel of John, which means it's going to be super long and wordy, right? And it's going to be okay. But whenever this happens, I ask why. Why would the lectionary skip ahead like that? I don't like it. I don't think it's right, but it's what we have for today. And I think I know why. The lectionary writers had an agenda. It was an emphasis on the idea that Jesus and the apostles were constantly swamped by people coming and going. They were so busy that they didn't even have time to stop and eat. Jesus didn't want the disciples to get totally burnt out. So he said, hey, boys, come away.